The Yuba County Five. 5 men went to a basketball game, 4 were found dead in the mountains. February 24th, 1978, 5 men drive to a college basketball game in Chico, California. They're excited, having a great time. The game ends at 10 p.m. They start driving home, a simple 50-mile trip they've made before. But instead of going home, they turn onto a remote mountain road, drive 70 miles in the wrong direction, and abandon their car in the snow. 4 months later, 4 of them are found dead. And what happened in those mountains defies all logic. They were called the Yuba County Five, but they called themselves a team. 5 friends, all in their 20s and early 30s, all with mild intellectual disabilities, living in Yuba County, California. Gary Mathias, 25, the most capable of the group. He'd served in the Army, had some experience with wilderness survival, but he also struggled with schizophrenia and had recently stopped taking his medication. Jack Madruga, 30, owned the car they'd be driving that night, responsible, careful driver, knew the roads well. Bill Sterling, 29, worked part-time, lived with his parents, loved sports. Jack Hewitt, 24, passionate about basketball, excited about the upcoming Special Olympics tournament. Ked Weyer, 32, nicknamed Big Ted because of his size. Gentle, loved routine. These 5 men were part of a Special Olympics basketball team called the Gateway Gators. They'd been practicing for weeks for a tournament in a nearby town. On February 24th, 1978, they decided to drive to Chico State University to watch a college basketball game, inspiration for their upcoming competition. They left Yuba County around 6 p.m. in Jack Madruga's 1969 Mercury Montego. The game was about 50 miles away. They arrived, watched the game, had a great time. The game ended around 10 p.m. They were seen buying snacks at a convenience store after the game. Drinks, candy, nothing unusual. They seemed happy, joking around, completely normal. Then they got in the car to drive home. It should have taken about an hour. Their families expected them back by midnight. They never made it home. When the 5 men didn't come home that night, their families immediately knew something was wrong. These men were creatures of habit. They didn't take spontaneous trips. They didn't stay out all night. They had the basketball tournament coming up. They wouldn't miss practice. Families reported them missing the next day. Police began investigating, but there were no leads. The men had simply vanished. Then, on February 28th, 4 days after the disappearance, someone made a strange discovery. A Forest Service employee checking on snow conditions in the Plumas National Forest found Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego. It was parked on a remote mountain road 70 miles northeast of Chico, in the complete opposite direction of their home. The car was stuck in snow, but not badly. It could have been driven out with a little effort. The gas tank still had fuel. The keys were missing, but the car was unlocked. Inside the car, police found the men's wallets and IDs, maps that clearly showed the route home, a half-eaten bag of candy from the convenience store, no signs of struggle or foul play. But here's what made no sense. The area where the car was found was extremely remote. There were no towns nearby, no services, no reason for anyone to be there, especially at night in February when snow was heavy. Why would they drive 70 miles in the wrong direction, up a mountain road, and then abandon a working car? Search and rescue teams immediately began combing the area. The forest was massive, the terrain brutal. Heavy snow made searching difficult. Weeks went by. Nothing. Then, as the snow melted in June, 4 months after the disappearance, hikers started making horrific discoveries. On June 4th, a group of motorcyclists found a skeleton in the forest about 11 miles from where the car was abandoned. It was identified as Ted Weyer. He died from exposure. Nearby, searchers found the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling. They'd also died from hypothermia and starvation, their bodies scattered in the wilderness. But the most disturbing discovery was still to come. 19 miles from the car, deep in the mountains, there was a remote Forest Service trailer, a shelter for workers maintaining the forest roads. It was stocked with supplies, canned food, propane, a heating system, blankets. When search teams reached the trailer in June, they found Jack Hewitt's remains outside, and inside the trailer, they found Ted Weir's body. Ted had been there for months. He died not from hypothermia, but from starvation and severe frostbite. His feet were so badly frostbite they had essentially rotted off. He'd lost anywhere between 80 and 100 pounds. But here's what made investigators sick. The trailer was full of supplies. Canned food, sea rations from the military, enough to last months. A propane heating system still working with propane in the tank. Blankets, matches. Ted had apparently been living in that trailer for weeks, maybe months, slowly dying. But he hadn't eaten most of the food. He'd opened a few cans, but dozens remained untouched. The propane was barely used. He'd wrapped himself in up to 8 sheets, but he had access to warmer blankets. Why didn't he eat? Why didn't he use the heater properly? Why didn't he try to walk out when the weather improved? And most haunting of all, where was Gary Mathias? For over 40 years, investigators have tried to answer the impossible question. What happened to the Yuba County Five? Theory 1. They got lost. The simplest explanation. They took a wrong turn, ended up on the mountain road, got stuck, panicked, and made a series of fatal decisions. But this theory has problems. Jack Madruga knew the area well. They had maps in the car. The route home was clearly marked. And they had plenty of gas. They could have turned around at any point. Plus, why drive 70 miles up a mountain road before stopping? That's not getting lost. That's going somewhere. Theory 2. Gary Mathias had a psychotic episode. Gary had stopped taking his schizophrenia medication. Some believe he had a psychotic break that night. Maybe he thought someone was chasing them, or he became paranoid and convinced the others to keep driving. This could explain the irrational route. Gary was the most capable of the group. If he insisted they drive a certain direction, the others might have listened. But it doesn't explain why they abandoned a working car, or why they walked into the wilderness instead of staying with the vehicle. And where is Gary? His body was never found. Did he survive? Is he out there somewhere? Theory 3. They were chased. About 30 miles from where the car was found, witnesses reported seeing the Mercury Montego that night driving erratically as if being chased. Some reported seeing another vehicle following them. Could someone have forced them off the road, chased them into the mountains? But why? These were 5 harmless men going home from a basketball game. Who would target them? And why would an attacker let them reach a shelter, let Ted survive for months, but not finish the job? It doesn't make sense. Theory 4. They witnessed something. Some believe the men saw something they weren't supposed to see. Drug runners, illegal activity, something dangerous. They were chased or threatened, forced to drive into the mountains to get away. This explains the wrong direction, the abandoned car, the fear that kept them from leaving the trailer. Maybe Ted was too terrified to risk walking out. Maybe someone told them to stay put. But there's no evidence of any criminal activity in the area, and it still doesn't explain Gary's disappearance. The truth is, every theory fails to explain all the facts, and the single most disturbing question remains: why didn't Ted Weir use the resources around him to survive? He had food, he had heat, he had shelter, but he sat in that trailer wrapped in sheets, slowly dying, surrounded by the things that could have saved him. Was he injured? In shock? Waiting for someone? Following orders from someone? We'll never know. Gary Mathias is never found. Some believe he's still alive, living off the grid. Others think his body is somewhere in those mountains, yet to be discovered. The other 4 men, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, and Ted Ware, are buried in Yuba County. Their families got funerals, but they never got answers. What haunts investigators most is how preventable this tragedy was. If they'd stayed with the car, searchers would have found them within days. If Ted had eaten the food and used the heater, he might have survived until spring. But something, fear, confusion, injury, or some unknown force prevented them from making rational decisions. The Yuba County Five case is often called America's Dyatlov Pass because of the similarities. A group of people make inexplicable decisions that lead to their deaths in a remote wilderness. And like Dyatlov Pass, we have evidence, we have timelines, we have autopsies, but we don't have answers. 5 friends went to a basketball game. They should have been home by midnight. Instead, 4 of them died slow, agonizing deaths in the mountains, and 1 vanished without a trace. Was it a wrong turn that spiraled into tragedy? A psychotic episode? Something more sinister? The mountains know, but they're not telling. If you have any information about Gary Mathias or the Yuba County Five case, contact the Yuba County Sheriff's Office. Even after 46 years, the case remains open. If this mystery disturbed you like it did me, subscribe to Unsolved Vault. We're uncovering the cases that refuse to make sense. Comment below. What do you think happened to the Yuba County Five? Stay curious. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous wilderness is the one in our own minds. Thanks for watching.